Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wading into waters that I think for a lot of professionals, they find them murky, maybe even a little frustrating. We're talking about leadership.
Ah, yes. It's the ultimate corporate buzzword, isn't it?
It really is. And honestly, usually when I see the word leadership in like a course title or a seminar, my eyes kind of glaze over. I just expect a lot of vague platitudes, you know, the type, inspire the team, be the change, synergy, blue sky thinking. It often feels like a poster on a break room wall.
Right, with a soaring eagle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A soaring eagle. It's nice to look at, but it doesn't tell me what to actually do on a Tuesday morning when my supplier is late, my budget is cut, and, you know, my boss is screaming.
That is the most common complaint I hear, and frankly, a lot of leadership training.
Yeah.
It justifies that skepticism. It's often just too abstract.
Yeah.
It feels like it belongs in a philosophy class, not a boardroom. But the stack of research and training materials we have in front of us today it's different.
Right. And for everyone listening, we are diving into module L6M1 from the CIPS curriculum. That's the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. Specifically, we're looking at unit LO2. So this isn't self-help book fluff.
Not at all.
This is technical professional training for people managing really complex supply chains.
Exactly. And because it's so rooted in procurement and supply chain management, it's surprisingly tactical. The source material treats leadership not as a personality trait, you know, that old idea that you either have it or you don't, but as a toolkit.
Toolkit, I like that.
It's about mechanics. It asks the question, how do you actually get things done when you have to influence people who might outrank you or people who don't even work for your company?
And that's the key distinction for me. We aren't talking about being the CEO who, you know, rules by decree from a corner office. We're talking about strategic, ethical leadership in a world where you often have all the responsibility.
But only half the authority.
Exactly, half the authority.
Which is the reality for almost everyone in the modern workforce, not just in supply chain. You're navigating this web of relationships. You can't just order people to do things anymore.
So our mission today is to take this leadership concept and break it down into actual moves you can make on a chessboard. We have a lot to cover, from crafting a vision that isn't, you know, boring, to this 360-degree model of managing your boss and your peers, and finally, a specific list of influence tactics that includes everything from logic to, well, sucking up.
Oh, we will definitely get to the sucking up part. It is more scientific than it sounds, I promise.
I hope so. Let's start at the foundation then. The source material begins with this concept of the vision. Now, again, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
Every corporate strategy deck has a vision slide. It usually says something generic like, we want to be the best in class. Why does this training module put so much weight on having a vision?
Because in this specific context, a vision isn't just a slogan. The source defines effective leaders as those who create a vision based on, and this is the crucial part, data-driven insights.
Data-driven insights. Okay, so not just vibes.
Zero vibes. In procurement, a vision without data is essentially a hallucination.
I like that.
The text emphasizes that you need to articulate a desired outcome that is backed by hard facts. You don't just say, we want a better supply chain. You say something like, based on the spend analysis from Q3 and the geopolitical risk markers we are seeing in Southeast Asia, our vision is to diversify our sourcing base by 20% over the next 2 years to ensure continuity.
Okay, that is significantly different. That's a strategic assertion. It feels like a map, not just a wish.
Precisely. And it serves a very specific function. It aligns the team. If everyone knows why we're doing something, the data behind it, they're much more likely to follow. The source explicitly links this to promoting open communication. When the vision is backed by data, it removes the ambiguity. It stops being about the leader's ego and it starts being about the market reality.
There was something else in the vision section of the notes that really caught my eye. The text specifically lists implementing technology solutions to streamline processes, including blockchain and AI.
Yes, that stood out to me as well. It's very current.
Is that just the authors playing buzzword bingo? I mean, why is mentioning specific tech like blockchain or AI considered a leadership trait?
Well, it's about signaling. A leader's primary job, according to this framework, is to modernize. By explicitly including things like blockchain and AI in the vision, the leader is signaling to the entire organization, we are not stagnant, we are preparing for the future.
Ah, I see.
It's about showing that you're aware of the tools available to solve tomorrow's problems, not just, fixing today's leaks with duct tape.
So even if you aren't actually implementing blockchain tomorrow, just having it in the vision sets the tone.
Exactly. It signals alignment with strategic improvement. It tells your team, I am looking at the horizon, not just at my feet. And that instills confidence that the ship is being steered toward modernity.
Okay, but here's the problem with visions, especially the tech-heavy ones. The team often hears AI implementation, and they don't think modernity.
No.
They think, great, a robot is going to take my job, or great, another complicated software system I have to learn that probably won't work.
That is the resistance phase, and it is absolutely inevitable.
So the source calls the solution to this the mechanics of buy-in. How do you sell this vision without people rolling their eyes or, panicking?
This is where the ethical part of strategic ethical leadership starts to bleed in. The source talks a lot about sharing the benefits.
Sharing the benefits.
It is the what's in it for me factor, the WIIFM. You cannot lead effectively if the only person winning is the company. The text links influence to exchange and mutual benefits. If you want buy-in, you have to translate that corporate goal into a personal benefit for the people doing the work.
Can you give me a concrete example of that?
Sure. Let's say your vision is to automate purchase order processing using AI. To the team, that sounds like a cost-cutting measure, which sounds like layoffs.
Right.
A leader uses exchange to reframe it. You say, look, we are automating the PO processing so that you stop doing boring data entry on Fridays and start managing the supplier relationship, which, by the way, helps you hit your bonus targets.
Ah, I see. You're connecting the corporate win efficiency to the personal win. Less boring work and more money.
You have to connect the dots. If you don't, you aren't leading, you're just dictating. And in modern business, dictating, it rarely works for long. People will just drag their feet.
That transitions us perfectly to what I think is the core visual of this whole module. It's the most useful mental model in the entire stack. It's a 360-degree leader.
Yes. Leading and managing in 4 different directions model. It is a game changer for how we view our roles.
Right. So for you listening, I want you to visualize yourself standing in the middle of a room. In traditional management, we usually only think about the arrow pointing down at the people we supervise. But this model has 4 arrows: up, down, sideways, and out.
It shatters the illusion that leadership is just bossing people around. I mean, in reality, looking down is maybe 25% of the job. The other 75% is managing people you have no direct control over.
Let's unpack these one by one, because the tactics are totally different for each direction. Let's start with the scariest one for most people. Managing up. Leading your boss. Or the board.
This is where careers are made or broken. You can be great at managing your team, but if you can't manage your boss, you will never get the resources you need.
The source lists some very specific tactics here. And the first one is filtering. It says, filter information and focus on relevance.
Oh, I see this mistake constantly with new managers. I mean, all the time. They think transparency means telling their boss everything.
Yeah.
Oh, the shipment is late, the printer is broken, Bob is annoyed, and it's raining outside.
And the boss hates that.
The boss hates that because you are turning them into your therapist. You're just transferring your stress onto them. Managing up means being a filter, not a funnel. You need to absorb the noise and only pass up the signal. You protect them from the chaos so they can make decisions.
So if a shipment is late, you don't just walk in and say the shipment is late.
Absolutely not. You walk in and say, the shipment is delayed, which impacts production by 4 hours. I've already contacted the secondary supplier, and for a 5% premium, we can bridge the gap. Do you approve the spend?
That's filtering and solving. You aren't bringing a problem.
You're bringing a decision. Exactly. You present a solution. The source emphasizes being concise, relevant, professional, and timely. Your boss has decision fatigue. Don't add to it.
There's another tactic here for managing up that I found fascinating. Gatekeepers. The notes say, address the right people, info gatekeepers. Who are we talking about here?
We're talking about the informal power structure, the executive assistant, the chief of staff, the deputy.
The people who guard the door.
The people who guard the door. You might be trying to get a strategic initiative approved by the CPO, the chief procurement officer, but if you can't get on their calendar, your strategy is dead. The gatekeeper controls the calendar.
Right.
They control what documents sit on top of the pile and what documents fall behind the desk.
So managing up actually involves managing kind of sideways. Or managing the support staff.
It involves managing access. If you are dismissive or rude to an executive assistant because you think they don't matter, I guarantee your business case will vanish. It isn't even necessarily malicious. It is just human nature. They prioritize people who treat them well. Managing up means recognizing that the path to the boss often goes through someone else.
Speaking of the business case, the source is very specific about language here. It says when you present to senior leadership, you must present a business case.
Because senior leadership speaks a specific language, risk and money. They don't speak effort. They don't care how hard you worked on the spreadsheet. They don't care about the technical nuance of the logistics route unless it costs money. They care about the ROI. So you have to translate your supply chain problem into their currency.
So not we need new software because the old one is slow.
No, it's the current software latency is costing us $50,000 a quarter in lost productivity and increases our compliance risk.
That's a huge shift in mindset. You have to be bilingual, you speak operations to your team, but you have to speak finance to your boss.
Precisely. If you can't make that translation, you will always struggle to get budget.
One last note on managing up.
Yeah.
Promoting the achievements and ideas of individuals to secure sponsorship. This feels counterintuitive to ambitious people. Shouldn't I be taking the credit?
Well, if you go to your boss and say, look what I did, you look like a decent individual contributor. You look ambitious, sure, but maybe a bit selfish. If you go and say, look what my team did, or look at this great idea Sarah had, you look like a leader. It signals you are confident enough to shine the light on others. And ironically, that makes the boss trust you more. You are securing sponsorship for your whole team by being their hype man to upper management.
Okay, let's spin the compass. Direction number 2. Influencing external stakeholders. In this context, we are mostly talking about suppliers.
Right, and this is a totally different ballgame.
The source makes a really critical distinction here. It says you may not be supported by legitimate position power.
And this is the fundamental difference between a manager and a supply chain leader. If your employee messes up, you can put them on a performance improvement plan. You have legitimate power. It's written in your contract. You're the boss.
But if a supplier messes up,
you can't put a supplier's factory manager on a PIP. They don't work for you. You are two separate legal entities. You can't just give an order and expect it to be obeyed because of your title.
So if you can't give an order, how do you lead them? The text mentions connection power and interpersonal influencing skills.
It really comes down to relationship capital. Connection power is about networking, who you know. But the source focuses heavily on exchange.
Quid pro quo?
Yes. If you need a supplier to prioritize your order over competitors, you can't just demand it. You have to trade. If you can expedite this shipment, I can introduce you to our R&D team for that new prototype you want to bid on.
You have to find a currency they value.
Exactly. It's a negotiation, not a command. You have to think, what do they want? Maybe they want faster payment terms. Maybe they want a reference for another client. Who knows? You have to ask.
The source also mentions profile raising and managing the image of the project. That sounds a bit like PR.
It is PR. Think about it. Suppliers have limited resources. They have their A team of engineers and their B team. You want their A team working on your account.
And how do you get that?
By being a customer of choice. If the market perceives your project as prestigious, innovative, and well-managed, suppliers will fight to be involved. They will send their best engineers because they want the case study. If your project has a reputation for being a chaotic sinking ship where invoices aren't paid on time,
they'll do the bare minimum.
They will do the bare minimum to fulfill the contract. So leading externally means managing the hype around your work.
That's fascinating. You're essentially branding your department to the outside world to attract better service.
100%. And that requires leadership presence.
Okay, direction number 3. Leading direct reports. The down arrow. This is the classic manager role. But the source throws a specific academic term at us. Transformational leadership.
This is a heavy hitter in management theory. It's usually contrasted with transactional leadership.
Transactional being, I pay you, you do the work.
Pretty much. Transactional is a contract. You move 50 boxes, I give you $50. It works for simple tasks, but it doesn't get you extra effort. Transformational leadership is about changing the person. It's about aligning their goals with the organization's goals. The source lists 3 components: inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration.
Let's break those down because they sound great, but what do they look like on a Monday morning? Intellectual stimulation. It sounds like we're running a philosophy club or something.
Yeah, it just means you aren't doing the thinking for them. A transactional boss says, move these boxes to shelf B. A transformational boss says, we have a bottleneck in the warehouse layout. How would you redesign it to make it faster?
You're asking them to solve the problem.
You are stimulating their brain. You're validating their intelligence. That builds loyalty way faster than a 2% raise. It makes them feel like partners in the process rather than just hands.
And individualized consideration.
It means realizing your team isn't a monolith. You have a single parent who needs flexible hours on Tuesdays. You have a young grad who is hungry for training and wants to travel. You have a veteran who just wants to be left alone to do good work. Treating them all exactly the same isn't fairness. It's bad management.
Right.
You have to tailor your leadership to the humans standing in front of you.
Finally, direction number 4. Cross-functional leadership. Managing sideways, leading your colleagues in finance, marketing, operations.
The peers. The people who are at your level but in different departments.
The source highlights the challenge here as interfunctional barriers or conflict.
Or as we usually call them, silos.
Why is this direction so hard? I mean, these people work for the same company. We should all be on the same team.
We are on the same team, but we have different scoreboards. And that's the root of the conflict. Marketing is measured on speed and new product launches. Procurement is measured on cost control and risk. Those goals naturally clash. Marketing wants to fly in a new material overnight to hit a launch date. Procurement wants to ship it by sea to save money.
So conflict isn't just personality clashes. It is actually structural.
It is. So you can't just say, let's all get along. The tactics suggested here are cultivate relationships. Specifically, do favors, negotiate.
The bank of goodwill.
Exactly. This is so critical. You help finance with a report they're struggling with today, even if it's not your job, so that next month when you need a budget approval rushed through, you can make a withdrawal from that bank. You have to deposit before you can withdraw.
The source also says, create a sense of belonging early in a project.
That's about breaking the silo mentalities before they harden. If you launch a project team with people from finance, ops, and legal, and you give them a shared name and a shared goal from day one, they start to identify with the project rather than just their home department. It creates a temporary tribe.
It's strategic empathy. You have to understand their pressures.
Right. Leading sideways is all about empathy and negotiation. You have zero authority, so you need 100% influence.
Okay, so that's the 360 view. You're filtering up, trading out, transforming down, and negotiating sideways. That sounds exhausting.
It is an exhausting job description. That's why they call it strategic leadership. You can't autopilot this. You have to be deliberate about which face you wear depending on who you are talking to.
To help with this, the source provides a toolkit of influence. And this gets really granular. I want to talk about the push and pull model first. It's drawn as a wheel in the slides.
This is a great diagnostic tool. We all have a default setting, usually based on our personality.
The push style involves persuading, using logic, reasoning, and asserting, stating expectations, applying pressure.
I need this done by Friday because of X, Y, and Z. If not, there are consequences. That's a push. It's energy coming from me, directed at you. It is very directive.
And the pull style.
The opposite. It's about drawing the other person out, bridging, active listening, asking questions, attracting, painting a vision. So it sounds more like, how do you think we should solve this?
So the obvious question is, which one is better?
Neither. And that's the trap. The source suggests you need a range. You have to be able to flex.
Can you give me a scenario?
Sure. Imagine there is a literal fire in the warehouse. Do you use pull? Do you say, let's sit in a circle and explore our feelings about this smoke? What does the fire mean to you?
No. You scream, get the fire extinguisher.
You push. You assert. In a crisis or when safety is at risk, push is necessary. But imagine you are trying to redesign a supplier relationship to be more innovative. If you push, innovate now, be creative, you get nothing.
Right.
Innovation requires safety and creativity. You need to pull, you need to bridge, you need to ask questions to unlock their ideas.
So a good leader needs to be able to switch gears constantly.
Constantly. If you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Most ineffective leaders are just stuck in push mode because it feels like working. It feels active. Pulling can feel passive, like you aren't doing anything, but it's often more powerful for long-term commitment.
Speaking of hammers and nails, the source cites a specific list of influencing tactics by Yackel and Falb. It's quite a list. I want to run through these because some of them are surprising, and I want to get your take on the ethics of them.
Let's do it.
First one, rational persuasion.
This is the bread and butter of procurement. Logical arguments, evidence, data. Here is the spreadsheet, here is the saving. It's standard, it's safe, but it often fails if emotions are involved or if the other person feels threatened. Logic doesn't cure fear.
Next up, inspirational appeal.
Appealing to values and ideals. We aren't just cutting costs, we are making the supply chain sustainable for the planet. This taps into emotion. It's essential for that transformational leadership we talked about. It gives people a why.
Consultation.
This is just asking others to participate in the planning. This is the IKEA effect.
The IKEA effect.
It's a real behavioral psychology concept. You value the furniture more if you built it yourself. Even if it's a bit wobbly, you love it because it's yours. If you ask your team to help build the plan, if you consult with them, they won't fight the plan. They own it. They will defend it.
Exchange. We touched on this one. Quid pro quo.
Very transactional. It's effective, but if you overuse it, relationships become purely mercenary. People stop doing things just to be helpful. They start asking, what do I get? Every single time.
Okay, here is the one that stopped me in my tracks. Ingratiation.
Yes, the controversial one.
The source actually lists ingratiation as a valid professional tactic, getting someone to think well of you before asking for something. Is this just fancy speak for sucking up?
It effectively is, but let's try to look at it neutrally. It's social loopation.
That isn't it manipulative?
It depends on the intent, doesn't it? If I ask about your kids because I genuinely care, it's empathy. If I ask about your kids because I want you to sign a contract, it's ingratiation. But the reality is, it works. If you walk into a request cold, the gears grind. If you spend 5 minutes being pleasant, complimenting their recent presentation, or just being a human, you put them in a cooperative frame of mind.
So don't hate the player, hate the game.
Something like that. I mean, the source acknowledges it as a tactic, use it at your own ethical discretion. But realizing that people like to be liked isn't manipulation, it's just awareness.
Yeah. Next, coalition.
Seeking the help of others to persuade someone. Strength in numbers. You can't convince the finance director. Bring the ops director with you. It's much harder to say no to a group. It signals consensus.
Legitimating.
Citing rules or personal authority. So according to policy 4.2, or the CEO wants this done.
That sounds like the last resort of a weak leader. Just because I said so.
It is. It works. You will get compliance, but you will not get commitment. You burn goodwill every time you use it. People will do it, but they'll do it grudgingly.
And finally, the dark side. Pressure.
Threats. Aggression. Do this or you're fired. Do this or we cancel the contract.
The source explicitly notes this can border on aggression. This leads us to the concept of escalation. There's a whole slide on this.
Escalation is the nuclear option of influence. The source defines it as raising the intensity of a response. Usually this means going over someone's head.
Going to their boss, I'm telling on you.
Exactly. And the source gives a very balanced view here. The pro of escalation is that it sends a clear message. I am serious. I am willing to create a scene to get this resolved. It shows resolve and it can break a deadlock.
But the cons seem heavy.
They are. Hardened resistance, resentment, and creation of a debt.
Explain the debt part.
If you go to your boss to fix a problem with a peer, you are using up political capital. You're asking mom and dad to settle a fight. You can't do that every week. If you do it too often, you look incapable of handling your own problems, and the peer you escalated against, they will never trust you again. You have burned the bridge to cross the river.
So in supply chain, if you escalate to a supplier's CEO,
you might get the parts today. The CEO will yell at the account manager and the truck will arrive. But that account manager you bypassed, they will follow the contract to the letter from now on. No more favors, no more emergency fixes. You enter a work-to-rule relationship. You've lost all your flexibility.
So use with extreme caution.
Only when the alternative is catastrophic failure.
We've covered the directions and the tactics. Now let's talk about the people, because the source makes it clear. You can't lead everyone the same way. This is situational leadership.
The S1 to S4 framework, this is so crucial. It says that your leadership style has to match the readiness of the follower, and readiness is a mix of competence, can they do it, and commitment, do they want to do it?
Let's walk through the life cycle of an employee using this. Let's say we hire a junior buyer, let's call her Jenny. Jenny's fresh out of college. She is excited, but she knows nothing about procurement. What stage is she?
Jenny is S1, low competence, high commitment. She doesn't know what to do, but she wants to do well.
So what style do I use with Jenny?
You use telling. High direction, one-way communication. Jenny, here's the template. Fill out these 3 boxes. Send it to me by 5 p.m.
People often say telling is just micromanagement and it's bad.
It's only bad if you use it on an expert. For Jenny, it's a lifeline. If you try to empower Jenny on day one, just go figure it out, Jenny. I trust you. Jenny will drown. She will panic. She needs structure. She needs S1.
Okay, so 6 months pass. Jenny knows the forms. She's learning the suppliers. But maybe the initial excitement has worn off and she realizes the job is hard.
Now she is S2. And you move to selling. You still provide direction, you make the decisions, but you explain the why. You are selling her on the strategy. You are coaching. You are dealing with that dip in motivation by providing context.
Another year passes. Jenny is good. She knows the job. But maybe she's hesitant to negotiate big contracts alone. She has the skills, but lacks the confidence.
Now she is S3. She has the competence, but lacks the confidence. You switch to participating. You stop giving orders. You say, Jenny, this contract looks tricky. How do you think we should handle the pricing clause?
You facilitate.
You're a safety net, not a commander. You are there to catch her if she falls, but you let her walk the tightrope.
And finally, Jenny is a rock star.
What?
She knows more about the category than I do.
That's S4. You switch to delegating. Jenny, you own this category. Let me know if you need resources. Otherwise, I'll see you at the quarterly review.
That's the dream.
It is. But the leadership failure happens when you mismatch. If you use S4 delegating on S1 Jenny, that's abandonment. She fails. And if you use S1 telling on S4 Jenny, that's micromanagement. She will quit because you aren't respecting her expertise.
So a leader has to be a diagnostician. You have to check the patient's vitals before you prescribe the medicine.
Exactly. And the patient changes over time. You have to keep checking.
We are nearing the end of our deep dive. We need to talk about how we measure all of this, because otherwise it's just vibes, right? The source brings up smarter objectives.
Everyone knows SMART, goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. It's the Peter Drucker classic. But the deep dive source adds 2 letters, E and R.
What do they stand for?
E is for evaluated. It's not enough to just hit the target. You have to look back and say, was this worth it? Did the cost of achieving the goal outweigh the benefit? Did we spend $100 to save $50? R is for responsible. And this is the ethical kicker. It forces you to look at the impact. You might achieve a specific and measurable cost reduction of 20%. Great job. You hit the number. But if you did it by squeezing a supplier until they went bankrupt, or by using a factory that utilizes forced labor,
If you failed the R.
you failed. You are not responsible. And in modern supply chain, that is a critical failure.
That ties right back to the module title, Strategic Ethical Leadership. It's not enough to just win. You have to win the right way.
And the source lists metrics for this. It divides them into hard and soft. Hard metrics are easy, cost saving, profitability. But it explicitly lists ethical conduct, sustainability, and team retention as key metrics of leadership.
So if you hit your numbers but your whole team quits,
You are a bad leader. The source is very clear on that. You failed the soft metrics, which inevitably destroys the hard metrics in the long run. If everyone quits, you won't hit your numbers next year.
before we wrap up, I want to try to synthesize all of this. The source material includes a test yourself scenario. It's about a guy named Francesco.
Yes, the automotive component supplier case.
Let's role play this out to see how the whole toolkit fits together. So the scenario, Francesco is a supply chain leader. He needs to manage the flow of parts for an automotive company. He has issues everywhere. Prices are rising. The factory is screaming for parts, and his team is stressed. How does Francesco use the 4 directions model?
Okay, let's put Francesco in the center of the room.
First, he looks up. He needs more budget to secure parts because prices are rising.
Okay, so he shouldn't just complain to the board. He needs to manage up. He creates a business case. He filters the noise. He doesn't tell them about every single truck. He tells them market volatility requires a 10% budget increase to guarantee production continuity. He uses rational persuasion. He speaks their language.
Now he looks out. External. He needs the supplier to prioritize his order over others.
He has no legitimate power. So
Right.
he uses connection power or exchange. Maybe he offers the supplier a longer-term contract in exchange for immediate stock. He builds a coalition with other buyers to exert leverage. He is negotiating, not ordering.
Now he looks down. His team is panicked.
He assesses their readiness. For the new buyers, he uses S1, telling, call these 3 vendors now. For his senior buyers, he uses S3, participating, how can we solve this logistics bottleneck? And he uses transformational leadership, that inspirational motivation. We are keeping the factory alive, guys. This is critical work. He gives them a purpose.
And finally, he looks sideways. The manufacturing manager is yelling at him because inventory is low.
Francesco needs to cultivate relationships. Maybe he uses a bit of that ingratiation to calm the manager down. Then he uses consultation. I know you need parts. If we air freight them, it costs X. If we wait, it costs Y. What works best for your production schedule? He treats the peer as a partner, not an enemy.
Poor Francesco. He has a lot of work to do.
He does, but notice he isn't just reacting. He is using specific tools for specific people. That is strategic leadership. He is playing the board, not just the pieces.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've gone from the high-level vision supported by data and tech down to the 360-degree management of bosses, suppliers, teams, and peers.
We covered the push-pull styles, the specific influence tactics, and that situational leadership roadmap.
And we learned that objectives need to be smarter, evaluated, and responsible.
It turns leadership from a personality trait into a profession, a set of skills.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked about ingratiation, the art of getting someone to like you before you ask for something. The source lists it right alongside rational persuasion and logic.
It does. It's right there.
So here is the question. In a high-stakes professional setting, where is the line between building rapport and manipulation? Does buttering someone up undermine the concept of ethical leadership, or is it just smart human psychology that we all need to accept?
That is the million-dollar question.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Go practice your pull style on someone today, or maybe just buy them a coffee. We'll see you next time.